Document Part 7. The Vril's response came slowly, each word dripping with reluctance. For the first time since their arrival, Calver's mechanical voice lacked its usual arrogance. "Your terms," he repeated, his glowing eyes narrowing as he processed the situation. The alien ambassador stood aboard his ship, surrounded by his crew, were frantically working to stabilize their damaged systems. The sight of humanity's warships, once hidden but now revealed in all their glory, had shaken them deeply and deeply. In the secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, Daniel Carter exhaled a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The moment had arrived, humanity's chance to redefine its relationship with the Vril. He glanced at Laura Bennett, whose face was pale but determined, then at Jake Miller, whose sharp gaze reflected both satisfaction and caution. This wasn't just about winning a battle, it was about securing a future where Earth could stand on equal footing. "We'll send our terms immediately," Daniel said firmly, turning to the communications team. "Make it clear that we're open to negotiation, but only if they agree to cease all hostile actions against us." Laura stepped forward, her hands steady as she typed out the message. She chose her words carefully, striking a balance between firmness and diplomacy. "We demand the following," the transmission began. "First, an immediate halt to all attacks on Earth's infrastructure. Second, compensation for the destruction caused to our planet and its people. Third, a formal acknowledgement of humanity's sovereignty and independence. If these conditions are met, we are willing to discuss mutual cooperation moving forward." As the message was sent into space, the room fell silent. Everyone waited anxiously for the Vril's reply, knowing that this moment would shape the course of history. Minutes passed like hours, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, the speakers crackled to life once more. "Your demands are acceptable," Calvor said, his tone grudging, "but know this. You have earned nothing through strength alone. Your species remains primitive compared to ours." Jake clenched his fists, biting back a retort. The insult stung, but arguing would only prolong the standoff. Instead, he focused on the bigger picture they had forced the Vril to negotiate. Something no one thought possible just days earlier. Daniel nodded curtly, addressing the team. "Dave, they've agreed to talk. That's progress. But don't let your guard down. We still don't know what they're capable of or what they might try next." Meanwhile, aboard the Vril ship, tempers flared among the crew. Zyrene approached Calvor cautiously, her mandibles clicking softly as she spoke. "Ambassador, I must ask, are we certain this is wise? Their technology may be advanced, but their resolve is stronger than we anticipated. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach." Calvor turned to her sharply, his glowing eyes blazing with irritation. "Reconsider? They are children playing at warfare. Yes, they surprised us momentarily, but their victory is hollow. We still possess superior knowledge and power." Zyrene hesitated, unwilling to challenge her superior directly, yet doubt lingered. In her mind, humanity's resilience reminded her of stories from her own species' past tales of survival against overwhelming odds. Could it be that the humans were more than they seemed? Back on Earth, the team gathered around the conference table to discuss their next steps. Emily Dawson shared new findings from her analysis of the Vril's energy pulses. "I've identified a pattern in their communication signals," she explained, pointing to a series of graphs on her laptop. "If we can decode it fully, we might gain insight into their intentions and possibly even predict their moves." Laura leaned closer. "Studying the data intently, it could give us a huge advantage. Let's focus on breaking it down further." While Emily and Laura worked on deciphering the alien language, Jake coordinated with military leaders to ensure the Eclipse fleet remained ready for action. Though the Vril had agreed to negotiations, trust was in short supply. Every member of the team understood that peace was fragile and easily shattered. Chris Adams would return to the facility after cooling off, voiced his concerns during the meeting. "What if this is just a trick?" he asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "People are already questioning whether we should keep talking to them at all. How do we know they won't turn on us the second they get what they want?" Sighed, recognizing the validity of Chris's fears. "We don't know for sure," he admitted. "What Walking away now would mean giving up any chance of resolving this peacefully. We have to take the risk. Jake nodded in agreement. We've shown them we're not afraid to fight back. If they try anything, we'll be ready. As preparations continued, Laura made a surprising discovery while reviewing historical records embedded within the Vril's language. Hidden beneath layers of complex syntax were fragments of their species' history accounts of near extinction. Events, internal conflicts, and struggles to adapt to changing environments. One passage in particular caught her attention. Asterisk pride blinds even the strongest, but those who refuse to learn from others will fall. Asterisk Laura's heart raced as she realized the significance of the text. The Vril's arrogance wasn't just a personality trait, was a defense mechanism born from fear. Their species had faced extinction before, and the memory of that vulnerability haunted them. By mocking humanity, they sought to distance themselves from the very traits they despised in their own past. She shared her findings with Daniel privately. Knowing the implications could shift the dynamics of the negotiation, "This changes everything," she said quietly. "Their behavior isn't just about superiority, it's about insecurity. They see parts of themselves in us, and it scares them." Daniel's eyes widened as he processed her words. So, their insults aren't just meant to belittle us. They're trying to convince themselves they're better than us. Exactly, Laura replied. If we can appeal to that fear, if we show them we're willing to work together instead of fighting, we might actually reach common ground. Daniel nodded thoughtfully, considering how to use this information to their advantage. It was a risky strategy, but it might be the key to ending the standoff without further bloodshed. Later that evening, the team reconvened to finalize their approach. Daniel outlined a plan to emphasize mutual respect and cooperation during the negotiations, focusing on shared goals rather than differences. "We need to remind them that survival isn't about dominance, it's about adaptation," he said. "If we can frame our proposal in those terms, we might break through their defenses." Emily and Laura worked late into the night refining the frequency signal to ensure it could disrupt the Vrith shields again if necessary. Jake coordinated with General Paul Hayes, ensuring the Eclipse fleet stayed positioned strategically near Earth's orbit. Even Chris contributed, helping analyze satellite data for signs of additional threats. As dawn broke over the horizon, the team prepared to meet the Vril once more. Exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone, but determination burned brighter. It had proven humanity's strength not just through technology, but through unity and resilience. Now, they had one final task: to prove that peace was worth fighting for. Outside, stars faded into the light of a new day, symbolizing hope amidst uncertainty. Humanity had taken a stand, refusing to bow to intimidation or despair. Whether the Vril would honor their agreement remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: Earth would never again be underestimated. Document. Part 1. The stars shimmered brightly in the night sky, their light casting faint reflections on the surface of Earth's oceans. For centuries, humanity had looked up at those distant pinpoints of light and wondered if they were alone in the universe. But tonight, the question was no longer theoretical. The answer had arrived, and it wasn't what anyone expected. High above Earth's atmosphere, a massive alien vessel hovered silently. It was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The ship glowed with an otherworldly light, its surface shifting, colors as though alive. It didn't look like metal or any material humanity could produce. Instead, it seemed to pulse with energy, defying the laws of physics that governed human technology. The craft moved without engines, without visible propulsion systems, as if it simply willed itself into existence near Earth's orbit. Back on the ground, people gathered around televisions, phones, and computers, watching live broadcasts from every corner of the globe. News anchors spoke in hushed tones, their excitement barely contained. Scientists speculated about the visitors' intentions, while conspiracy theorists claimed this moment had been orchestrated by governments for decades. Amid the chaos, one thing was clear: humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial life had finally occurred, in a secure facility located deep beneath the Nevada desert. Daniel Carter sat at the head of a long conference table. His face was calm, but his mind raced with possibilities. As the lead diplomat chosen to represent Earth, he knew the weight of his responsibility. Beside him sat Laura Bennett, a linguist whose expertise in decoding unknown languages made her invaluable to the mission. Across the table, military advisors, scientists, and government officials exchanged nervous glances, each trying to predict what would happen next. "They're here," said Emily Dawson, a physicist who had spent years studying signals from space. Her voice trembled slightly as she pointed to a screen displaying real-time data from satellites tracking the alien ship. "They've entered Earth's orbit and are holding position." "Communication yet?" Daniel asked, leaning forward. His tone was steady, betraying none of the anxiety swirling inside him. Emily nodded. "Yes, we received a transmission. It's complicated." She hesitated, glancing at Laura, who was already typing furiously on her laptop. "It's not in any language we recognize. We're working on deciphering it now." Before anyone could respond, the room's speakers crackled to life. A low, guttural sound filled the air, followed by clicks and chirps that echoed unnaturally. Then suddenly, the noise transformed into words spoken in halting mechanical English. "Humans of Earth," the voice began. It sounded cold, emotionless, almost bored. "We are the Vril. Your species has intrigued us. You've attempted primitive signals to reach beyond your world. Now we have come." Daniel straightened in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Is it?" he murmured under his breath. He turned to Jake Miller, a military advisor sitting quietly at the far end of the table. "Are we ready?" Jake gave a curt nod. His expression was grim, his jaw clenched tightly. "As ready as we'll ever be," the alien voice continued, its tone growing more dismissive with each word. "Your technology is rudimentary. Your understanding of the cosmos is limited, yet you persist. This curiosity intrigues us. However, know this. You are inferior. Do not mistake our presence for respect." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Even the most skeptical members of the team felt a chill run down their spines. The aliens weren't just here to observe, they were here to judge. They had already decided humanity wasn't worth much. Laura leaned closer to Daniel, her brow furrowed. "That last part tits almost mocking," she whispered. "Like they think we're beneath them." Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the screen showing the alien ship. "Stay focused," he said firmly. "We don't know their intentions. Yet, let's not jump to conclusions." But others in the room weren't so restrained. One of the scientists, a young man named Chris Adams, slammed his fist on the table. "Who do they think they are? They show up uninvited, insult us, and expect us to roll over? This isn't right." "Calm down," Jake interjected sharply. His voice cut through the rising tension like a knife. "Getting angry won't help. We need to stay professional. If we let emotions get the better of us, we'll lose control of the situation." Chris sank back into his seat, muttering under his breath, but the damage was done. The mood in the room had shifted. What had started as cautious optimism was quickly giving way to frustration and fear. Meanwhile, Emily stared at the data streaming across her monitor. Something about the alien ship didn't add up. Its movements were too precise, too deliberate. It didn't behave like any spacecraft humanity had encountered before. Was it truly just observing, or was it probing, testing Earth's defenses? "Need to respond?" Daniel said finally, breaking the silence. "If we don't say something, they'll assume we're weak. Laura, draft a message. Keep it respectful, but firm. Let them know we're willing to cooperate, but on equal terms." Laura nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard. She crafted a carefully worded reply, emphasizing humanity's desire for peaceful interaction, while subtly asserting Earth's independence. When she finished, she looked up at Daniel for approval. He scanned the message quickly, then gave a single nod. "Send it." Moments later, the transmission was sent into the void, carried by radio waves toward the alien vessel. The team waited anxiously for a response, their hearts pounding in unison. Seconds stretched into minutes, and just when it seemed the Vril might ignore them entirely, the speakers crackled again. Your response is noted came the same cold, mechanical voice. However, your claims of equality are laughable. Your kind builds crude machines and calls it progress. You cling to fragile alliances and call it unity. Your children playing at being adults. You will determine whether you deserve further. Attention. The words hung heavy in the air, leaving everyone speechless. Even Daniel, usually unshakable, struggled to maintain his composure. He glanced at Laura, who looked pale and shaken, then at Jake, whose knuckles were white as he gripped the edge of the table. "Well," Jake said after a long pause, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "at least they're honest." Despite the gravity of the situation, a few nervous chuckles broke out among the group. Humor, however dark, was often the only way to cope with overwhelming stress. But beneath the laughter lay a shared determination. Humanity might be small, inexperienced, and vastly outmatched, but it wasn't going to bow to anyone, especially not a bunch of arrogant aliens. As the meeting adjourned, Daniel lingered behind, staring at the image of the alien ship displayed on the main screen. He couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning. The Vril had judged humanity harshly, but they hadn't seen everything Earth had to offer, not yet. Whatever happened next, Daniel vowed silently, humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. Outside, the world continued spinning, oblivious to the monumental events unfolding above. Stars twinkled innocently in the sky, unaware that one of their own had come to visit and perhaps to conquer. Document Part 2. The next morning, the world woke up to news that spread faster than wildfire. Social media platforms were flooded with reactions. Some people celebrated the arrival of aliens as proof of humanity's place in the cosmos, while others expressed fear and anger over the Vril's dismissive tone. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans like "We are not inferior" and "Earth stands strong." Governments scrambled to address public concerns, but behind closed doors, tensions ran high at the secure facility. Beneath the Nevada desert, Daniel Carter and his team reconvened early, their faces etched with fatigue. None of them had slept much after the previous night's unsettling exchange with the Vril. The alien ship still loomed in Earth's orbit, its presence a constant reminder of humanity's vulnerability. No. For now, it remained stationary, watching, silently, as if waiting for something or someone to make the next move. Laura Bennett arrived first. Clutching a cup of coffee in one hand and her notes in the other, her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she carried herself with quiet determination. She sat down at the conference table and opened her laptop, reviewing the transcript of the Vril's message. The words replayed in her mind. Asterisk, you are children. Playing at being adults. Asterisk, it stung deeply, not just because of the insult itself, yes, but because there was an undeniable truth to it. Humanity wasn't perfect. Its history was riddled with conflict, division, and mistakes. But that didn't mean they deserved to be mocked. Daniel entered the room shortly afterward, his expression unreadable. He nodded briefly at Laura before taking his seat. One by one, the rest of the team trickled in. Emily Dawson, the physicist; Jake Miller, the military advisor; Chris Adams, the young scientist who had lost his temper the previous day; and several others tasked with handling this unprecedented crisis. The atmosphere was tense, charged with unspoken questions. What did the Vril want? Why were they here? Most importantly, what would they do next? Before anyone could speak, Emily stood up and approached the large screen displaying live footage of the alien vessel. "I've been analyzing their ship all night," she began, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion evident on her face. "It's incredible. The energy signature is unlike anything we've seen. Their propulsion system, if you can even call it, that is completely beyond our understanding. They're not using fuel or engines. It's almost like they manipulate space itself." Jake leaned forward, his sharp gaze fixed on Emily. "So what does that mean for us? Are they more advanced than we thought?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Yes, definitely. But I also noticed something strange. Their movements are precise, almost too perfect. It's like they're following a script. I think they're testing us." "Testing us?" Chris blurted out, his frustration bubbling to the surface again. What gives them the right? Just because they have fancy tech doesn't mean they get to waltz in here and act like gods. Chris, calm down, Daniel said firmly, though his tone wasn't harsh. He understood the younger man's anger, mirrored his own, but losing control wouldn't help anyone. Emily's right. We need to assume they're gathering information about us. Every move we make, every word we say, they're probably analyzing it. Laura nodded in agreement, which means we have to be careful. We react emotionally, we'll play right into their hands. We need to show them we're intelligent, capable, and united. But how? Chris demanded, throwing up his hands. They already think we're worthless. How do we change their minds without groveling? No one answered immediately. Question hung heavy in the air, unanswered yet impossible to ignore. Finally, Jake spoke up, his voice low and measured. We don't grovel. We prove them wrong. Show them we're not as weak as they think. Daniel glanced at him, intrigued. And how exactly do we do that? Jake shrugged. Start small. Keep sending messages. Build rapport. Let them see we're not afraid to stand our ground. At the same time, we prepare for the worst. If they decide to attack, we need to be ready. The room fell silent as everyone considered Jake's words. Preparation was key, but so was diplomacy. Humanity couldn't afford to let pride cloud its judgment. Not when the stakes were this high. Later that day, the team sent another message to the Vril, this time inviting them to engage in open dialogue. The response came quickly, delivered in the same cold, mechanical voice that sent shivers down Laura's spine. We accept your invitation, the Vril replied. Prepare to meet our ambassador. An hour later, a smaller craft detached from the main vessel and descended toward Earth. It moved gracefully, slicing through the atmosphere without leaving a trail of fire or smoke. Cameras captured its descent, broadcasting the event live to billions of viewers worldwide. People watched in awe as the sleek, insect-like shuttle landed in a remote desert location designated for the meeting. The Vril ambassador emerged moments later, stepping out of the craft with an air of superiority that made Daniel's jaw tighten. Kael'vor, as he identified himself, was taller than any human, his body encased in an iridescent exoskeleton that shimmered under the sun. His limbs were jointed like those of an insect, and his head bore no features resembling a human face. Only a human face. Only a pair of glowing, multifaceted eyes and clicking mandibles that served as a mouth. He wore no clothing, no insignia, nothing to indicate rank or status beyond his sheer presence, accompanied by armed guards and flanked by Laura and Jake. Daniel approached the alien cautiously. Up close, Kael'vor was even more intimidating. His movements were fluid and deliberate, exuding an aura of power that seemed unnatural. When he spoke, his voice boomed through an interpreter device strapped to his chest, translating his clicks and chirps into English. You requested this. Meeting, Kael'vor said, his tone dripping with disdain. Speak. Prove you are worthy of our attention. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing himself to remain composed. Ambassador Kael'vor, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We understand your species is far more advanced than ours, but we believe mutual cooperation could benefit both parties. Together we can. Kael'vor interrupted him with a sharp click of his mandibles. Cooperation? You presume equality where none exists? Your kind struggles to survive on a single planet while we traverse galaxies? What could you possibly offer us? Laura stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Knowledge. Perspective. Humanity has achieved great things despite our limitations. Our creativity, our resilience, these qualities set us apart. We may not have your technology, but we have something equally valuable, the ability to adapt and grow. A moment, Kael'vor studied her, his glowing eyes scanning her face as if searching for signs of deception. Then, he emitted a series of rapid clicks that sounded vaguely like laughter. Adaptation? Resilience? These are traits of survival, not greatness. Tell me, human, how will such qualities protect you from extinction? Jake clenched his fists, resisting the urge to step in. The insult was clear, but responding with anger would only validate the Vril's assumptions about humanity's weakness. Instead, he focused on observing Calver's behavior, noting the subtle shifts in posture and tone. There was arrogance. There, yes, but also something else. Something Jake couldn't quite place yet. Daniel cleared his throat, drawing Calver's attention back to him. Extinction is a possibility for any species, Ambassador. But humans have faced countless challenges throughout our history and overcome them. We've learned from our mistakes and grown stronger because of them. Perhaps there's value in that. Calvor tilted his head slightly, as if considering Daniel's words. Then, without warning, he turned and gestured toward his shuttle. Enough talk. Show me your world. Prove your claims. The team exchanged uneasy glances. This was unexpected and risky. Allowing the Vril to explore Earth unchecked could expose humanity's vulnerabilities, yet refusing might escalate tensions further. After a brief, whispered discussion, Daniel nodded reluctantly. Very well, he said, addressing Calvor. We'll arrange a tour of our planet. Please remember, we are sharing this experience in good faith. Mutual respect is essential. Calvor clicked dismissively. Respect must be earned, human. Lead the way. As the group boarded a transport vehicle designed to accommodate the aliens' unusual size, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The Vril's arrogance bordered on cruelty, and their true intentions remained unclear. Still, she clung to hope that diplomacy could prevail. Humanity had survived worse odds before. Surely it could find a way to coexist with Evan Impression. Alien race that viewed it as insignificant. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with challenges. But one thing was certain. Humanity's resolve would be tested like never before. Document. Part 3. The transport vehicle carrying Calvor and the human delegation sped across the desert, kicking up clouds of dust in its wake. Inside, the tension was palpable. Daniel Carter sat rigidly in his seat, his eyes fixed on the road ahead while Laura Bennett fidgeted nervously beside him. Jake Miller leaned against the wall near the back, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. The Vril ambassador stood tall in the center of the vehicle, his multifaceted eyes scanning everything around him with an unsettling intensity. Kale-VORR had insisted on visiting Earth's most advanced facilities, places where humanity showcased its technological achievements. His request seemed reasonable at first glance, but Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that it was a test. Every stop they made would reveal more about Earth's capabilities and its weaknesses. Still, they had no choice but to comply. Refusing would only confirm the Vril's belief that humans were unworthy of respect. Their first destination was a sprawling research complex located on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona. It housed cutting-edge laboratories, experimental reactors, and prototype machines designed to push the boundaries of science. As the group entered the facility, Calvor clicked his mandibles impatiently, clearly unimpressed by the modest exterior. But when they stepped inside and saw the rows of gleaming equipment and bustling scientists, his glowing eyes flickered with faint curiosity. "This is one of our premier research centers," Daniel explained, gesturing toward the labs. "Here, we explore new ways to harness energy, improve medicine, and understand the universe." Calvor tilted his head slightly, as if considering the statement. Then he spoke, his mechanical voice cold and dismissive. "Primitive tools for primitive minds. You build machines that mimic nature, but fail to grasp its essence. Your efforts are quaint." Laura bristled at the insult, but forced herself to remain calm. She stepped forward, pointing to a nearby display showcasing a fusion reactor prototype. "This device generates clean energy by mimicking the processes inside stars. It may not be perfect, but it represents years of hard work and innovation." Calvor examined the reactor briefly, then emitted a series of clicks that sounded suspiciously like laughter. "You replicate what already exists in the cosmos. How predictable. Tell me, human, do you truly believe such trivial accomplishments make you special?" Jake clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. He wanted nothing more than to shut the alien up, but he knew losing his temper would only play into Calvor's hands. Instead, he focused on observing the ambassador's reactions, searching for any sign of weakness or vulnerability. So far, All he saw was arrogance, but arrogance often masked insecurity. There had to be something beneath the surface. After touring the research complex, the group moved on to their next stop, a state-of-the-art space observatory nestled high in the mountains. Its massive telescopes probed the depths of the universe, capturing images of distant galaxies and mapping the stars. When Calvor saw the observatory's control room filled with monitors displaying breathtaking views of the cosmos, he paused. For a moment, his glowing eyes narrowing. "You look outward," he said, his tone almost contemplative, "yet you remain trapped within your own atmosphere. Why do you waste time gazing at what you cannot reach?" Emily Dawson, who had joined the tour at this location, stepped forward hesitantly. Her voice trembled slightly as she addressed the towering alien. "We study the stars because we want to learn. Understanding the universe helps us grow as a species. Someday we hope to travel beyond our solar system to join the rest of the galaxy." Calvor let out another burst of clicking sounds, this time louder and more derisive. "Hope is for dreamers, not survivors. Your kind clings to fantasies, while stronger races claim the stars. Perhaps you should focus on surviving your own planet before seeking others." The words hit hard, striking a nerve among the humans present. Earth wasn't perfect, it never had been, but calling its struggles irrelevant felt unfair. Humanity had overcome countless challenges throughout history, from plagues and wars to natural disasters and climate change. To dismiss those achievements as meaningless stung deeply. Daniel took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay composed. "Survival isn't just about strength, Ambassador. It's about resilience, adaptability, and the will to keep moving forward. Humans have faced extinction-level events before, and we've always found a way to endure." Calvor turned his piercing gaze on Daniel, studying him intently. For a brief moment, there was a flicker of something in his expression, not quite respect, but perhaps acknowledgement. Then it vanished, replaced once again by disdain. "Endurance is admirable," he conceded grudgingly. "But admiration alone does not grant equality. Prove yourselves worthy, or accept your place beneath us." As the day wore on, the group visited several more sites, each chosen to highlight humanity's progress and potential. They toured a renewable energy plant powered entirely by wind and solar power, a medical research center developing cures for deadly diseases, and even an art museum showcasing centuries of human creativity. At every stop, Calvor delivered, biting critiques, mocking humanity's reliance on emotion, imagination, and collaboration. Yet despite his harsh words, he lingered longer at some exhibits than others, seeming particularly fascinated by works of art and scientific breakthroughs driven by pure curiosity. By the time the tour ended, exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. The humans returned to the secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, their spirits battered but not broken. Back in the conference room, they gathered around the table to debrief, sharing their thoughts and observations. "They're testing us," Emily said firmly, breaking the silence. "Every comment, every question, it's all part of some kind of evaluation. I think they're trying to decide whether we're worth dealing with or if they should just ignore us altogether." Chris Adams slammed his fist on the table, unable to contain his frustration any longer. "Ignore us. After everything we showed them today? That's insane. We've built cities, cured diseases, explored space. We've done so much. How can they act like we're nothing?" "They see us as nothing," Jake replied bluntly. "To them, we're just another species struggling to survive. Till we prove otherwise, they'll treat us accordingly." Daniel nodded slowly, his mind racing. "Jake's right. We need to show them we're more than just survivors. We're innovators, creators, fighters. But how do we do that without giving away too much? If we reveal too much of our technology or military strength, they might see us as a threat instead of an ally." Laura leaned forward, her brow furrowed in thought. "Maybe it's not about showing them what we have. It's about showing them who we are. Our values, our determination, our unity. They underestimate us because they don't understand us. If we can bridge that gap, maybe we can earn their respect." The team fell silent, considering her words. It was a risky strategy, but it might be their best chance. The Vril viewed humanity through a lens of superiority, dismissing emotions and relationships as weaknesses. If the humans could demonstrate that those qualities were actually strengths, perhaps they could turn the tide. As the meeting adjourned, Daniel stayed behind, staring at the screen, displaying the alien ship still hovering above Earth. He thought about Kelver's words, his condescending tone, and his apparent fascination with certain aspects of human culture. There was more to the Vril than met the eye. He was sure of it. And if humanity played its cards right, it might just find a way to turn their arrogance into an opportunity outside. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Stars began to twinkle in the distance, reminders of the vast universe beyond Earth's borders. For now, humanity remained grounded, uncertain of what the future held. But one thing was clear: the battle for respect and survival was far from over. Document. Part 4. The days that followed the alien tour of Earth's achievements were tense and exhausting. The team gathered daily in the secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, reviewing every interaction with Kael'vor and trying to decipher the Vril's true intentions. Despite their efforts, answers remained elusive. The ambassador's behavior was unpredictable, sometimes dismissive, sometimes curious, but always tinged with arrogance. It was clear the Vril saw humanity as inferior, but whether they planned to exploit, ignore, or destroy Earth was still uncertain. Daniel Carter spent hours poring over recordings of Kelver's comments, searching for patterns or hidden meanings. Laura Bennett worked alongside him, analyzing the alien language and attempting to decode its nuances. Meanwhile, Jake Miller focused on preparing contingency plans, knowing full well that diplomacy might fail. Emily Dawson continued studying the Vril ship, hoping to uncover vulnerabilities or weaknesses that could give humanity an edge if conflict became inevitable. But there was something else at play, something few people outside the inner circle knew about. Deep within Earth's military archives lay a secret project decades in the making, known only by its codename, Eclipse. It represented humanity's greatest technological leap forward, a fleet of experimental warships designed to operate beyond Earth's atmosphere. These vessels weren't just prototypes, were fully operational, armed with cutting-edge weaponry and cloaking technology, capable of rendering them invisible to even the most advanced sensors. General Paul Hayes, head of Earth's defense forces, had authorized the deployment of the Eclipse fleet shortly after the Vril's arrival. Positioned near Jupiter, far enough from Earth to avoid detection but close enough to respond quickly. The ship stood ready to protect humanity at a moment's notice. For now, however, their existence remained classified. Daniel, Jake, and a handful of trusted officials knew the truth. Revealing the fleet too soon could provoke the Vril into attacking prematurely. But keeping it hidden risked underestimating the aliens' capabilities. One evening, as the rest of the team left the facility to grab some much-needed rest, Jake pulled Daniel aside. "We need to talk," he said quietly, his tone serious. They moved to a secluded corner of the building, away from prying ears. "What is it?" Daniel asked, sensing the urgency in Jake's voice. "It's about the fleet," Jake replied. "I've been monitoring their movements. The Vril ship hasn't budged from its position above Earth, but I'm starting to think that's intentional. They're watching us, waiting to see what we'll do next." Daniel frowned.
You think?
"They suspect something?" Jake shook his head. "Not yet. But they're not stupid. If we keep playing passive, they'll assume we're weak. We need to send a message. Show them we're not afraid to stand our ground." Daniel hesitated, weighing the risks. Exposing the Eclipse fleet could escalate tensions. But Jake was right. Humanity couldn't afford to appear helpless. "What do you suggest?" Jake leaned closer, lowering his voice further. "Let's move one of the ships closer to Earth, just within range of their sensors. Not close enough to provoke an attack, but enough to let them know we have teeth. If they detect it, they'll realize we're holding back. If they don't, we can always pull it back without giving anything away." Daniel considered the idea carefully. It was a bold move, but sometimes boldness paid off.
All right,
He said finally, "Do it, but keep it subtle. If this goes wrong, we're out of options. Meanwhile, Emily Dawson sat alone in her lab, staring at a series of graphs and data streams displayed on her monitor. She had spent countless hours analyzing the energy signatures emitted by the Vril ship, looking for any clue that might explain how it operated, which she found both fascinated and terrified her. "Laura," she called out, spotting the linguist passing by the doorway. "Can you come here for a second?" Laura entered the room, curiosity etched on her face. "Is it?" Emily pointed to the screen, highlighting a specific pattern in the data. "Look at this. Their ship emits a low-frequency pulse every few minutes. At first I thought it was part of their propulsion system, but now I'm not so sure. It matches frequencies we've seen before in animal communication." Laura frowned. "You mean like a language?" "Exactly," Emily said, her voice tinged with excitement. "It's possible they're using these pulses to communicate, not just with each other, but with their ship. If we can decode them, we might be able to understand their commands, or even interfere with them." Laura's eyes widened. "That's incredible, but also dangerous. They catch us messing with their systems." "I know," Emily interrupted. "But we're running out of time. Every day we wait, they grow more confident. We need to level the playing field somehow." Laura nodded slowly, understanding the stakes. "All right, let's work on it together. Maybe between your technical expertise and my knowledge of their language, we can crack it." Back at the main conference table, Chris Adams paced nervously, his frustration boiling over. "This isn't working," he exclaimed, throwing up his hands. "We've shown them everything the best of what we've got, and they still treat us like dirt. What more do they want from us?" Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. He understood Chris's anger. It mirrored his own, but losing control wouldn't help. "Chris, calm down. We're doing everything we can. But remember, this isn't just about proving ourselves. It's about staying alive. If we rush into anything reckless, we risk losing everything." "But how long do we keep bending over backward for them?" Chris shot back. "Lay insult. Us. Mock us. Act like we're nothing and we just sit here taking it. That's not leadership, that's cowardice." Before Daniel could respond, Jake stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "Chris, no one's saying we should roll over and die. But acting impulsively won't solve anything either. Or Vril are arrogant because they think they're untouchable. Our job is to make them doubt that, and trust me, we will." "Hey, Chris." Glared at Jake, his jaw clenched tightly, but he didn't argue further. Instead, he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The others exchanged uneasy glances, knowing his outburst reflected a growing sentiment among the team and the world at large. Patience was wearing thin. As the meeting ended, Daniel lingered behind, lost in thought. He replayed Jake's earlier suggestion in his mind, wondering if moving the Eclipse fleet closer to Earth was the right call. It was a gamble, yes, but humanity couldn't afford to play it safe forever. Sometimes bold actions spoke louder than words. Later that night, deep in space, one of the Eclipse fleet's warships began its slow, stealthy approach toward Earth. Cloaked in invisibility, it slipped through the void undetected, its crew ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Back on Earth, Jake monitored its progress closely, his fingers hovering over the controls. If the Vril detected the ship, it would send a clear message. Humanity wasn't as powerless as they believed. For now, though, all anyone could do was wait outside. The stars twinkled innocently in the sky, oblivious to the drama unfolding below. Humanity's fate hung precariously in the balance, caught between hope and fear, pride and survival. The Vril had underestimated Earth once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Document. Part 5. The days that followed were a blur of tension and uncertainty. Humanity had taken its first bold step by moving one of the Eclipse fleet's warships closer to Earth. But the Vril showed no immediate reaction. They're massive. Ship remained stationary in orbit, its glowing surface pulsing faintly as if mocking humanity's attempts to assert itself. The waiting game was excruciating, testing the nerves of everyone involved. At the secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, the team gathered daily for updates. Daniel Carter stood at the head of the conference table, his face lined with fatigue, but his resolve unwavering. Laura Bennett sat beside him, her laptop open as she continued decoding fragments of the Vril's language. Emily Dawson worked tirelessly in her lab, analyzing the energy pulses emitted by the alien ship and searching for patterns that might reveal weaknesses. Jake Miller, meanwhile, monitored the Eclipse fleet's movements, ensuring the cloaked warships stayed undetected while remaining ready to act at a moment's notice. Despite their efforts, cracks were beginning to show within the team. Chris Adams grew increasingly restless, his frustration boiling over during meetings. "We're wasting time," he snapped one morning, slamming his fist on the table. "They're sitting up there laughing at us while we sit here doing nothing. When are we going to fight back?" "Chris, calm down," Daniel said firmly, though his tone wasn't harsh. "Fighting isn't always the answer. Sometimes strategy matters more than brute force." "Strategy?" Chris shot back, his voice rising. "What strategy? All we've done is roll over and let them insult us. If we don't do something soon, they'll think we're weakened. Then what happens? Do you really want to find out?" Ch leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Chris, yelling won't change anything. We're preparing for every possibility. Trust me, when the time comes, we'll be ready." Chris glared at him, his jaw clenched tightly, but he didn't argue further. Instead, he stormed out of the room, leaving an uncomfortable silence behind. The others exchanged uneasy glances. Knowing his anger stemmed from fear shared by many across the globe, outside the facility, public sentiment mirrored Chris's growing impatience. News outlets broadcast endless debates about humanity's response or lack thereof, too. The Vril's presence. Some praised Daniel and his team for maintaining diplomacy, while others accused them of cowardice. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with crowds chanting slogans like "Stand up to the invaders" and "Earth deserves respect." Amid the chaos, Calvor watched silently from aboard the Vril ship. His glowing eyes scanned the data streaming across his monitors, observing humanity's reactions with detached curiosity. To him, the protests and arguments were predictably amusing. He saw them as proof of humanity's emotional instability, another reason to dismiss them as inferior. But not everyone aboard the alien vessel shared his perspective. A younger, Vril officer named Zirin approached Calvor cautiously, her mandibles clicking softly as she spoke. "Ambassador, I must ask Har. We certain this species poses no threat. Their behavior suggests otherwise." Calvor turned to her, his expression unreadable. "What do you mean?" "They display resilience despite their limitations," Zirin explained. "Even now, they rally together, questioning our authority. Such unity is rare among lesser species. Perhaps we should proceed with caution." Calvor clicked dismissively. "Caution is unnecessary. They are primitives, clinging to fragile alliances and base emotions. Their defiance is meaningless. It will crumble under pressure." Zirin hesitated, unsure whether to press further. Finally, she bowed her head slightly and retreated, though doubt lingered in her mind. Something about humanity intrigued her, even if she couldn't quite explain why. Back on Earth, tensions escalated when the Vril made their next move. Without warning, they deployed a series of small drones into Earth's atmosphere. Sleek and insect-like, the machines zipped through the skies, disabling satellites and disrupting global communications. Panic spread quickly as cell phone networks went dark. Internet connections failed, and GPS systems became unreliable. In the secure facility, alarms blared as technicians scrambled to assess the damage. Emily stared at her monitor, her hands flying across the keyboard as she analyzed the drone's movements. "They're targeting key infrastructure," she reported grimly. "If we don't stop them, they'll cripple our ability to respond." Jake clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. "This is it. The line has been crossed. We can't let them get away with this." Daniel nodded slowly, his expression grim. "Agreed, but we need to act carefully. Retaliation could escalate things further. Let's focus on neutralizing the drones first." Laura stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "What if we use the frequency patterns I've been decoding? If we can mimic their signals, maybe we can confuse or disable the drones." Emily's eyes lit up. That could work. If we broadcast the right sequence, we might disrupt their programming. Do it, Daniel ordered. Jake, coordinate with the military to deploy countermeasures. Need to regain control before it's too late. For hours, the team worked tirelessly, combining Laura's linguistic expertise with Emily's technical knowledge to craft a signal capable of interfering with the drones. Meanwhile, Jake liaised with ground forces, organizing teams to track and neutralize any rogue machines that evaded the signal. It was a race against time, and failure wasn't an option. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the signal was ready. Emily activated it, broadcasting the frequency across multiple channels. Almost instantly, the drones began malfunctioning. Some plummeted to the ground, their systems overwhelmed by the interference, while others froze midair, rendered inert. Global communications gradually came back online, and the immediate crisis was averted, but the victory was short-lived. Hours later, reports began pouring in about a farming village in Nebraska that had been destroyed during the drone attack. One of the machines had malfunctioned and crashed into the settlement, leveling buildings and injuring dozens of people. Images of the devastation flooded news outlets, sparking outrage and grief worldwide. Inside the secure facility, the team watched the coverage in stunned silence. Daniel's face was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he processed the reality of the situation. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "We tried to avoid conflict to keep everyone safe, but look what happened." Laura placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. She wanted to say something comforting. Words felt hollow in the face of such tragedy. Jake broke the silence, his voice low and angry. "Enough is enough. We gave them chances to back off, but they've shown they don't care about collateral damage. It's time to show them we're not afraid to fight back." Daniel hesitated, torn between his commitment to diplomacy and the mounting pressure to act decisively. Finally, he nodded slowly. "You're right. We've tried playing nice, but they've left us no choice. Prepare the fleet. We'll send a message they won't forget." As the team dispersed to carry out their tasks, Daniel stayed behind, staring at the screen displaying the Vril ship. Its glowing surface seemed almost taunting now, a symbol of arrogance and disdain. For weeks, humanity had endured insults and provocations, hoping to avoid bloodshed. But the destruction of the village had changed everything. The Vril had underestimated Earth once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Outside, the stars twinkled innocently in the night sky, oblivious to the storm brewing below. Humanity's patience had run out, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of two species. Document Part 6, the decision to act had been made, but the weight of it hung heavily over Daniel Carter and his team. In the secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, preparations moved forward with quiet urgency. The Eclipse Fleet, humanity's greatest secret, was now at the center of their strategy. For weeks, they had played the role of passive observers, enduring insults and provocations from the Vril, but the destruction of the Nebraska village marked a turning point, a line that could not be crossed without consequences. Daniel stood in the command room, staring at a large screen displaying Earth's orbit and the glowing silhouette of the Vril ship. Beside him, Jake Miller coordinated communications with the fleet, ensuring every ship was ready for deployment. Laura Bennett and Emily Dawson worked together in a nearby lab, fine-tuning the frequency signal they hoped would disrupt the Vril's defenses. Chris Adams paced nervously, his earlier frustration replaced by a grim determination. "We're running out of time," Jake said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm but carried an edge of urgency. "If we wait too long, they'll strike again, and next time it might be worse." Daniel nodded slowly, his mind racing through the possibilities. He knew Jake was right. Every second they delayed gave the Vril more opportunities to escalate their aggression. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that diplomacy still held some value, if only to demonstrate humanity's willingness to resolve conflicts peacefully before resorting to force. "Let's send them one final warning," Daniel said finally, turning to face the group. "Tell them to stop all hostile actions immediately or face the consequences." Laura looked up from her laptop, her brow furrowed. Do you really think they'll listen? After everything they've done? It doesn't matter if they— Listen, Jake interjected. What matters is showing them we're serious. If they ignore us, it'll justify our response and maybe even earn us some international support. Daniel agreed. Crafting the message carefully, he emphasized humanity's desire for peace while leaving no room for misinterpretation about the stakes. When the transmission was ready, it was sent directly to the Vril ship. Echoing into the void of space, hours passed without a reply. The waiting felt unbearable, each tick of the clock stretching longer than the last. Finally, the speakers crackled to life, and Calver's mechanical voice filled the room once again. Your threats are amusing, the ambassador sneered. You have no power. Your species is weak, divided, and afraid. Cease this futile posturing and accept your place. Jake clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. That arrogant son of A enough, Daniel interrupted sharply. Though his tone was firm, there was steel in his eyes. He wants us to react emotionally to prove his assumptions correct. We won't give him that satisfaction. Laura nodded, understanding the strategy. So, what do we do now? Daniel took a deep breath, his expression hardening. Show them exactly what we're capable of. High above Earth, the cloaked warship from the Eclipse fleet moved into position near the moon. Its sleek design blended seamlessly with the darkness of space, rendering it invisible to the Vril's sensors. Inside, the crew prepared for their mission, knowing the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. General Paul Hayes monitored their progress from Earth, his voice steady as he issued commands. Remember, stealth is key, he reminded the captain. Don't engage unless absolutely necessary. See how they react when they realize we're not as defenseless as they think. Back on Earth, Emily and Laura worked tirelessly to refine the frequency signal. They had discovered that the Vril's shields operated on a specific energy wavelength, one that could potentially be disrupted using the same pulses emitted by their own ship. By mimicking those frequencies, they hoped to create a temporary gap in the alien vessel's defenses. This could work, Emily said excitedly, pointing to a graph on her monitor. If we broadcast the signal at the right moment, we can weaken their shields just enough to make them vulnerable. Laura nodded, her hands flying across the keyboard as she adjusted the parameters. Let's test it first. We don't want any surprises when the time comes. As the hours dragged on, tension mounted within the facility. Outside, protests continued to grow louder. With people demanding action against the Vril, news outlets aired heated debates about humanity's response, some praising the government's restraint, while others called for immediate retaliation. The world watched anxiously, waiting to see how Earth would respond to the aliens' arrogance. Finally, the moment arrived. The cloaked warship decloaked suddenly, revealing itself near the Vril vessel. Its sleek, angular design gleamed under the light of the sun, its weapon systems primed and ready. Onboard cameras captured the reaction of the Vril crew. As they scrambled to assess the unexpected threat, Kelver's glowing eyes narrowed as he studied the human ship. For the first time since their arrival, his usual confidence wavered. "What is this?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking sharply. "How did they develop such technology?" Zyron stepped forward hesitantly, her voice tinged with unease. "Ambassador, I warned you about underestimating them. This proves my point." Calvor clicked dismissively, though doubt flickered briefly in his expression. "It changes nothing. Their ship is insignificant compared to ours. Destroy it." But as the Vril prepared to retaliate, Emily activated the frequency signal. A burst of energy pulsed through space, striking the alien vessel and causing its shields to flicker momentarily. Alarms blared aboard the Vril ship as their systems struggled to compensate for the disruption. "What's happening?" "Calvor!" snapped, his voice rising in alarm. "Why are our defenses failing?" Zyron checked her monitors, her mandibles twitching nervously. "Their signalets interfering with our shield matrix. Need to recalibrate immediately." Before the Vril could recover, the Eclipse fleet launched a series of precision strikes, targeting non-critical areas of their ship to demonstrate capability without causing catastrophic damage. Explosions erupted along the alien vessel's surface, sending shockwaves rippling through its structure. On Earth, the team watched the events unfold on their screens, holding their breaths. Daniel's heart pounded as he saw the Vril's reaction, not fear, but uncertainty. For the first time, the aliens seemed unsure of themselves. "They're rattled," Jake said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "Good. Let's keep the pressure on." Laura glanced at him, her expression cautious. "We've made our point. Now we need to offer them a way out before things spiral out of control." Daniel nodded, agreeing with her assessment. Turning to the communications officer, he instructed, "Send another message. Tell them we're willing to negotiate, but only if they meet our terms." As the transmission was sent, the room fell silent. Everyone knew the next few moments would determine the outcome of this standoff. Would the Vril back down, or would they escalate further? Minutes later, Kael'ver's voice returned, noticeably less condescending than before. "State your terms," he said gruffly, his usual arrogance replaced by guarded curiosity. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had taken a stand, proving it wasn't as powerless as the Vril believed. The battle for respect wasn't over, but for the first time, the odds felt a little more even. Outside, stars twinkled quietly in the night sky, witnesses to a pivotal moment in history. Humanity had drawn a line, and the cosmic Sandan dared the Vril to cross it.